The media, liberals, and even Hillary Clinton herself proudly proclaimed she was the candidate for women.
I also wanted to thank you for being a role model to my daughter as well as young women everywhere.
A new democracy cannot be built on the persecution of women.
22 years ago, Hillary Clinton declared that women's rights are human rights.
The only way we will get sexism out of politics is to get more women into politics.
Someone who has arguably been a defining figure in women's empowerment.
If we are serious about building a better, stronger, fairer America, we need to be serious about supporting and nurturing our girls.
Fighter for women and children, cops and first responders, health care and girls around the world.
Hillary's devoted her whole life to making sure women and children have an even shot.
To all the women, and especially the young women, who put their faith in this campaign and in me, I want you to know that nothing has made me prouder than to be your champion.
Now, a stunning new report claims Clinton kept a senior advisor on her 2008 presidential campaign even after learning of sexual harassment allegations against him. According to the New York Times, a 30-year-old female staffer accused Bernd Strider of repeatedly harassing her. The Times says Clinton ignored her campaign manager's call to fire Strider, opting for administrative sanctions instead. He was reportedly ordered to undergo counseling, and the campaign docked his pay. The young woman was moved to a new job. So, Kimberly, now maybe it's all come full circle. Like, no one has been immune to these accusations. And these allegations written about in the New York Times, they finally now reach up into Hillary Clinton's campaign.
Well, it was really only a matter of time, right? But this has been something that she has been really trying to own the platform, to say that she is for women, she is for children, she is for young girls, for their voice, and to help make sure that they are taken care of and aren't victimized. But then you see a situation like this, which is continuing to allow this kind of enabling behavior. But we saw it first with her relationship with her, husband, and trying to attack the victims there or trying to cover up misdeeds. So if you really look at the historical perspective in terms of what she's done and how she's conducted herself, she really isn't a champion of women and young girls.
You really couldn't ask for a story that was better at putting together the Hollywood and their situation and the Clinton campaign, of which Hollywood supported.
That's true. I mean, she kept someone on her payroll after being accused of sexual harassment. Yeah. I never heard of such a thing. Anyway, but it just goes to show you, to your earlier point, these stories are equal opportunity embarrassments. Yeah. They hit every political stripe. So you might say, ha, I knew it, but then it's going to come back and hit your team. Mm-hmm. So you can't look at it as a team sport. But it also talks about being compromised. These stories compromise you. What could she do about this fella when she herself is compromised? Because how could she fire a guy who's done 1/10 of 1% of what her husband's done? So she is compromised. And I mean, she should know sexism. She had a first-hand front row seat of an Olympic athlete in sexual harassment in her husband. So she kind of, she probably goes, oh, I can't do anything about this because look at this. So I don't know.
And Juan, one of the things that happened to this young woman, she doesn't reveal the name is not revealed in the story, is that instead of dealing with him and firing him, then she had to move to another job.
Well, I don't think that's true. I think from what I read, he was put into counseling, and then he had his pay docked, as I understand it. So essentially, at that point, he was suspended. But the problem and
they didn't say suspended.
Well, I think he was.
No, she
got moved, but I think they stopped paying the guy for several weeks, is what I understand.
Yeah, but my point was that there might be a cultural shift going forward for women who make accusations, that instead of moving them just to another job so that they don't have to deal with the guy anymore, right. But that is what happened in 2008. Right. She got moved.
Well, I think that there should be a process. I mean, we on this show have talked about the idea that not everything is Harvey Weinstein, right? And so there should be a process. They should be able to hear what this guy has to say in his own defense. But to my mind, the idea that she kept him there is an opportunity for conservatives to skewer her as a prime example of liberal hypocrisy, right? So if that's what the point is here, I say,
Well,
you know
I
what?
think that-
Conservatives, you win this one because guess what? Looks to me like liberal hypocrisy. But I will say that it's not fair, as some of my colleagues at this table say, oh, well, Hillary Clinton had to put up with Bill Clinton, and therefore she excuses. I don't think that's what happened. And I will say I think most American women trying to keep their marriages and families together will put up with a whole lot of nonsense. So, you know what? I don't think that's fair. But you know what? If you guys wanted to delight in this story, go for it. I will say from
I
the
don't think anyone's delighting.
Well, I think that's why we're doing this story. Oh, good. But I think from the Democrats' point of view, the contrary story today has to do with Steve Wynn. And Steve Wynn, the Vegas magnate, who is in power as the finance chair of the RNC.
Yeah, that story in the Wall Street Journal broke within the same hour as this story in the New York Times.
Of course, but Steve, as influential as Steve Wynn has been in Republican politics, we've all acknowledged this has happened on both sides of the aisle. Right. But to your point, Kimberly, Hillary has always been for one thing, Hillary Clinton. Her campaign manager recommended that this guy be fired. This guy is not just an advisor to the campaign. He was the faith advisor. He was Hillary Clinton's advisor on faith. Listen, I'm an old school Baptist boy. I know, I used to be able to know about half the Bible. I've forgotten 95% of what I did know. All have fallen and fallen short of the glory of God. Well, everyone sins and makes mistakes. But if you're the faith advisor on a presidential campaign and you're accused of kissing people and suggestive emails during the middle of the night, maybe the standard should be a little bit higher for you, as opposed to what she did for her husband, excusing it away and saying, well, actually, she gets moved and he gets some training and some counseling, but then put back in his position. Is everyone to be believed only when it's someone else's problem? That's the hypocrisy that is glaring in this. And it's not a scoreboard, Juan, but I think it is important to point out that she ran her campaign on being a champion of women.
That's
Yet her history is riddled with women who
But we ran a montage at the top of the show, Pete, and I was waiting for her to say, you know, anytime a woman says something, then the guy's got to be thrown out and will say, well, she didn't do that. But that's not what she said. She said her campaign encouraged and inspired women, especially young women, and that she was a role model for
a tweet of November 2015, every survivor of sexual assault deserves to be heard,
and this woman was
supported.
Hurt.
Except for Juanita Broaddrick. There should have been a tweet under that said, except for Juanita Broaddrick. I think what she did in this case pales in comparison to the things that happened before and how she treated people that had accused her husband of things. It is funny about it is. It's called American Values Network.
Very prominent organization.
It sounds like one of those organizations that are in a made-for-TV movie. Anyway, but he was obviously doing the wrong kind of praying. He got confused. With the E. But it just shows you, not everyone is perverts are everywhere. You can find them anywhere, or you can find people who commit these problems everywhere. It's not just movie producers.
And Kimberly, then just going forward, then for we're not going to turn the page and go backwards, right? We're not going that way. But going forward, I guess everybody's on notice now, right? It's not just any one particular group or any one industry or any one company or any one party. It's been everywhere, and women have had their chance to be heard. And do you think that there will be a permanent cultural shift in corporate America?
Yeah, I think we're seeing that evolution has been pretty swift and immediate in the aftermath of all of this, especially in the Me Too movement. And now we're going to have to see, what does Hillary Clinton do going forward? Is she going to try to capture the mantle here and acknowledge some wrongdoing or mistakes and how she's handled things, in the past to try to restore some, credibility? And that's the point, is like she has been the one that has positioned herself as sort of the face, of this movement and being supportive of women, what she campaigned on, et cetera. So if you're going to campaign on that, you're going to say that's who you are, then your conduct and the way you comport yourself should be consistent with those principles.
Well, that's part of the reason she lost, because she campaigned on a bunch of things that she felt like would make people attracted to her, but in actuality, they're manufactured issues or based on a history that doesn't comport with those positions. And people saw right through that, even though President Trump, then candidate Trump, was not a perfect candidate on a lot of those issues either. They forgave him for a lot of candor and authenticity as opposed to masking over.
Pete, I was following you just until that point. Wait a minute. So in other words, grabbing a woman in that way, that's excusable, but not
he came out
going
and said,
through a legal process in which you give someone who's been
he said it was
a
locker
good
room
worker
talk
in your company an opportunity to speak but it's okay to excuse Donald Trump and now the porn star, but not Hillary.
Locker room talk is a lot different than
locker room
physical.
Talk.
That's how he explained it.
No,
and that's
he said that he did. He said that he assaulted women. That's what he said.
Did he?
Well, yes.
Did he?
He never said that.
Are we going to parse the words right now?
I'm not parsing. I'm just saying that's what he said.
Because we're going to have to. From what I remember, which, by the way, I condemned when he said it, was that he was talking about when you're in power, you can grab women.
No,
and he said you.
No.
He said you.
I
think he said you.
I don't think so.
This is the problem with this. When you go down this road, is you sit here talking about this crap.
Yeah, but I don't think there's any question about things like the porn star. I don't think there's any question. So at one point, you say, "Oh,
are you sex shaming her?"
No, who?
Because she's a porn star. Is that what bothers you?
Sounds like it.
Yeah, it sounds like you're sex shaming her.
Oh,
I didn't catch that.
No, but I appreciate your insight.
Let's tease.
I appreciate it.
That was the
Control
idea.
room.
That was the idea.
President Trump is slamming reports he once tried to fire special counsel Robert Mueller. New details next.
Is pushing back hard against a report by the New York Times claiming he ordered the firing of special counsel Robert Mueller last June, but backed down after the top White House lawyer threatened to quit.
Why did you fire Robert Mueller? You want to fire Robert Mueller?
Fake news, folks. Fake news.
What's your message today?
Typical New York Times fake stories.
The development comes as the Justice Department's Inspector General has recovered the missing text messages between FBI agents Peter Strzok and Lisa Page. Were they trying to protect Hillary? This text message from 2016 certainly suggests so. It shows Page telling Strzok, quote, "She may be our next president. The last thing you need is going in there loaded for bear." Meanwhile, the chairman of the House Oversight Committee says the text confirmed the Bureau's bias.
It's clear that they did not want her charged. They wanted her to be the president of the United States. They really, really didn't want Donald Trump to be the president of the United States. And they concede throughout these texts that they did things differently in this investigation from any other investigation that they were part of.
All right. So, Dana, interesting developments coming kind of rapidly, one after the next this week. Where do you make of it and where we stand now?
Well, again, I want to be the maintain what I've said from the beginning, which is I want to wait until all of this is over, but it is inevitable that we're going to talk about these little nuggets as they come through. A couple of things about this is that I don't have any reason to not believe the New York Times, and I don't have any reason to not believe what Trey Gowdy is saying. I've not seen the text. I've not talked to the people. I do wonder about the leak in the New York Times. Like, I always try to think, who does that benefit, right? So, and it could be that this is all going to come out anyway, and that'll be what it'll be. But I also am a realist. And perhaps the two lovers at the FBI are in their text messages. They want Clinton to be president, and they hate President Trump. But guess what? Sorry, Greg used this phrase. Trump becomes president. And it also could be the case that President Trump thought about or wanted to or maybe even ordered and backed off firing Mueller. But also that didn't happen. So we're talking about a lot of things that could have happened, but they're not actually the reality of what is actually today.
Okay, Greg.
We're talking about something that didn't happen. You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
Yes.
And here is a discussion in which the media is surprised that Donald Trump mentioned firing somebody. The last half of his career, he is known for talking about firing people.
Every other sentence.
To him, firing people is like a cat toying with yarn. It's what he does. And the fact is, and this is the other thing that drives me nuts, I remember on a load of different cable shows talking about the firing of Mueller, whatever. And will he or won't he? He's watching that. It was actually a topic of conversation. And it was just like something that was like, well, it's probably a bad thing. He shouldn't do that. He's just listening to this stuff. And so people are suddenly shocked that maybe he mentioned it. That's garbage. The other thing, too, and I'm going to quote a friend of mine, Noam, who said this to me, that basically what the media is doing is they're waving a red cape in front of a bull, and then they're shocked that he charged. Mm-hmm. And basically, that red cape is this this insinuation of an investigation in which people are actually saying there might not be anything there, but we're still going to annoy you and bother you every single day about an investigation. That is the red cape. And so suddenly you're surprised that the bull, Donald Trump, charges. So basically what you're doing is, are you creating a criminal by investigating an innocent man? By constantly chasing somebody, telling them and investigating them, and then he says, something like, oh, they should be fired. And they go, aha, obstruction.
Yeah.
We didn't get you on collusion, but now we have you on obstruction. That's
what they do.
Absolutely.
Right. Yeah, whether or not it's not the crime perhaps itself, but they'll get you lying to the authorities.
I earned a lot of guess-whats from Juan on that one.
Yeah, indeed.
You know, I was listening to you with some intensity because I must say, sometimes you educate me, brother. Sometimes I'm like, wow.
And many times?
Yeah, because I just don't see the world that way. I'm listening because it's so interesting, but I must say, to me, I'm struck by the idea that this is just the latest example of what looks like an obstruction of justice case. That if he fired Comey, right? He asked Comey, are you loyal? He said to Comey, don't go after Flynn, right? And now we know that he was thinking about firing Mueller. Thinking. So you say thinking. But when it gets to really was like a stop sign saying, hold on, Mr. President, this could be deeper waters than we are ready to go into. So pick up on Dana's point now. Why is this story coming out now?
Exactly, the timing.
And
is
so
very
you
curious.
think, who comes out as the hero? The hero comes out as Don McGahn, right?
Well,
but
it might be a little bit protective, though, as well. What are the reasons? Like what Dana said, what is the reason? Why would this come out now?
Right.
During this time?
Well, so Bill Kristol had a thing. Bill Kristol had a tweet. Kimberly had said, maybe Don McGahn and some of Trump's lawyers put this out now, 7 months after the fact, because the president is now considering firing Mueller.
No, or maybe the special counsel released it through 4 second-hand sources in the New York Times to build an obstruction, continue to build the obstruction case that they want to bring, even though there's no there. To your point, I don't have any reason. Hold on, you know what you can set your watch to? You know what you can set your watch to? Every time there's a foreign trip that this president takes, because I host Fox and Friends on Saturday morning, we're covering a fake news New York Times, poorly sourced story that distracts away from the success of the president and builds a case based on old news. This isn't just fake news. This is old fake news.
Wait a second.
He
you
never
think this
fired
story
him.
is fake news?
He never fired Bob Mueller.
Wait a second. What
and
about
presidents can talk.
Wait a minute.
You can't think about, ask your lawyers whether you should fire somebody.
I appreciate Greg's point and your point that
and Dana's point.
Well, no, on your point that nobody was fired. I think that's a legitimate point. But this is not fake news. Ed Henry of Fox News confirmed this story.
News? Why is it substantial news? What does it matter? Since
what does
no one was fired. We've known about it since June. Why is it? The whole media went wall to wall, and this is a bombshell.
What does it matter?
What
No, I mean it's a fair. The point.
Tell me what?
It's we talked about this very point in June.
Right.
Yes.
I remember that.
And part of the reason we did is because one of the president's good friends and Chris Ruddy of Newsmax was on PBS with Judy Woodruff saying the president is thinking of considering firing Mueller, and that happens on June 12th. And then for the next 3 weeks, everyone from the White House says never happened.
Yeah.
So I guess that is one of the reasons
and who else?
that it's a story.
What about Donald Trump? He said, "Oh, not true, fake news" at that time.
Well, he's disputing a lot of the facts of it. No, John Roberts came out this morning and said there was highly
The person who looks good in this is Don McGahn.
He said that he didn't call for him to, that McGahn didn't
order.
McGahn didn't order it.
Didn't order it, but also that he didn't threaten to resign.
I also did not threaten to resign.
I just find it that everybody's so shocked by President Trump saying this or that. He probably said that. I assuming he said this, and he's probably saying, yeah, it's a bunch of baloney. He's probably saying that, too. That's the person we have as president now.
Wait a minute. I thought you were a Trump guy.
Wait, didn't you want him to listen to his advisor?
Yeah.
I listened to him. He's my advisor.
A businessman from Queens.
So you get it's both ways.
A businessman from Queens who hires and fires people for, 4 decades?
Every day.
You expect him to sit and go, oh, by all means, let me help you with your investigation. Let me sit back. No, he's going to fight back.
You said the guy's a liar. And we shouldn't trust him.
No, I didn't. The guy does not tell the truth in a lot of places. But I know that.
But what is it?
I know
he's a
liar
or you don't trust him?
No, I'm saying he doesn't. We know. We know when he doesn't tell the truth.
Apparently,
he's a transparent person.
Come on, Pete,
and
get in here.
you want him to listen to his advisors, except when he does, and doesn't do the thing that you didn't want him to do.
I just like to know that I can trust the president.
I just want to know that I can trust the press. And I love you've got 4 unnamed second-hand sources in the New York Times, timed nicely to get to over the top of these texts that are devastating the investigation. There might be a little there too.
I was just going to add one thing about what Greg was saying, and that he's been in business for 4 decades. He's hired and fired a ton of people. He's also been a part of either suing somebody or being sued and having to give depositions.
Right.
He's well aware of how the justice system works, and he understands what obstruction is.
Right. Ahead, President Trump lays out his plan for immigration reform. So will Democrats get on board? Don't hold your breath.
Released a new immigration proposal. It includes a pathway to citizenship for nearly 2 million dreamers, $25 billion for the border wall, and an end to the diversity visa lottery system, as well as significant curbs to chain migration. President Trump says he may be open to, quote, shifting on DACA in order to reach a deal with Congress. But some Democrats, well, still not happy. Senator Dick Durbin says the proposal holds dreamers, quote, hostage. House Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi, she agrees.
They want the ransom for these children to be $25 billion for a wall when we have all the needs that we have for infrastructure in our own country. So this is a fight that we will be having, not about people, but about value, not just about people, but about values.
So, Kimberly, let me come to you because one of the angles here that surprises me, obviously Democrats aren't on board, but there's strong opposition coming from people like Ted Cruz, who says, hey, there was no pathway to citizenship in DACA, and you're offering them one. Or Breitbart that calls this evidence of amnesty done. Or you look at some of the people who have been so strong on this, Heritage, saying this is a non-starter.
Yeah, well, you can imagine, though, but this is pretty consistent with some of the the precursor criticisms, right, of some of the president's viewpoints on immigration and DACA. But ultimately, we've always said at this table that, you know, he's a deal maker and he's going to want to get this done and get the wall done. So he's going to do what it takes to be able to compromise in the spirit of a negotiation, okay? So, of course, the people that have been very consistent on this from the beginning, people like Ted Cruz and like Heritage and others that would not like to see any leeway, saying, listen, why are you giving something, they feel like it is a regression backwards, that this is giving even more than, say, President Obama or somebody else would have given. So that's why they're finding it to be...
So you think it's an opening bid?
Yeah, well, I think it's an opening bid. He's got to do that. I mean, what happened before didn't work, right? Like they weren't able to come to some kind of positive resolution. He's going to have to give something. But he's going to also have to listen and heed some of the warnings and criticisms of his constituents and his core conservative base that came out strongly to support him in the election. So he's in a bit of a tough position. I don't think he minds it. He's not, you know, I guess uncomfortable or unfamiliar with being in a position, you know, like this. But you've got to be able to sit at a table and show that you have an open mind, you're willing to hear all sides of it. It's not nailed down in stone yet. They should be expressing their viewpoint, so should the other side. Then hopefully there's going to be some way in between to get some consensus building while still maintaining his core support. So, Pete,
the president has said he's willing to take heat to make a deal. The heat right now, strong from the right.
And rightfully and understandably so. It's one of two things. It's either a bad opening bid that will only get worse.
Yeah.
It went from 800,000, which is the original DACA number. Now it's 1.8 million. Some estimates say it'll end up being 4 million. It's citizenship when you could have provided some form of legal status at the beginning. Or others are saying, hey, this is brilliant. You're calling the Democrats bluff and forcing their hand by giving them more than they could have expected in the opening bid and then daring them to be against it. Because you don't need Dick Durbin and Nancy Pelosi. They're going to resist no matter what. You need Joe Manchin. You need 8 or 9 Senate Democrats to cross the aisle and vote for this. The question is, how far can he go? Because there's a lot of skepticism. The scars for the conservatives on immigration are deep. And even the Center for Immigration Studies is pointing out that while there are no new applicants for visa lottery and chain migration through this, it provides for the continuation of those categories until the admission of all 4 million people on the current chain migration waiting list, which, based on an estimate from 2007, means it could take 17 years for the current process to run out. Now, if it takes us that long to build the wall, where are we really?
So, Dana, now from the Democrat side, they say, $25 billion? Wait a minute. That's a ransom demand.
Well, what's interesting is if you think about where President Trump started on tax reform, for the corporate tax rate, he opened at 15%. He agreed to a 21%. Okay, so I could imagine going from $25 billion maybe down to $17 billion. Economic growth, of which there was a good GDP number today at 2.6% for the last quarter, gives you a lot of running room for that. And it was, I think, it actually border security. The Republicans are on the right side of this now, where public opinion is. And I think the other thing is, so the president's either going to get a great compromise or he thinks the Democrats don't want to make a deal. So if they walk away, he can say, look, I was willing to give almost 2 million people amnesty and the chance to become citizens. We're going to take their tax dollars. We want them to work. We should allow them to be citizens. And the Democrats wouldn't play. And I think that is actually a strong hand for him right now.
So the contrary point of view, Greg, is This is from Dick Durbin, who has been such an important player on the Democratic side. He says, you know, it's not only $25 billion, Trump also wants to limit legal immigration.
Yeah, I would caution anybody not to listen to Dick Durbin because he's an idiot. I mean, I think we figured that out by now. This is a guy who claimed that the phrase chain migration is racist because of the word chain. So I guess you can't put chains on your tires during a snowstorm because that would be racist, and tires are black, so obviously you hate blacks. That's how dumb this guy is. He's an idiot. So I hope I fixed that for you. Speaking of chain migration, I would like to know what Mexico thinks about all of this. Like, shouldn't Mexico be applauding the end of chain migration and the end of sanctuary cities and the end of amnesty? Because these are methods, all these are methods that allow the fastest desertion from your country of families, people leaving. Wouldn't you want that stuff to end so people stay in your country and make Mexico great again? I would like to hear them. I would like somebody to ask the Mexican president, you know, what do you think of chain migration? And also the idea of chain migration, when you think about it, imagine you're in line for Slayer tickets. The guy in front is in line, and he waves in all of his pals. In front of you, that's chain migration. So I am for a path for everyone. I think it's great. Yeah, but no cutsies. No cutsies.
Everybody hates cutsies.
Everybody hates cutsies. And I think the bottom line, if what unites everybody is the sense that somebody's getting something for nothing or somebody's cutting in line. And that applies to everything in life, whether philosophy of taxation, everything. If you think that somebody's getting something that they don't deserve, it bothers people. And I think that's what's happening here is when you think that, okay, there's a lot of people that want to get into this country, but they're not dreamers, so what does that mean?
I don't think that the Mexicans want. I think they would be fine with keeping chain migration for 17 years because of all the remittances. If the president really wants them to go home or not to come, then you have to limit the amount of money you can remit to another country.
Right.
Well, I would just say, I don't know why we're picking on Mexico, because most immigrants these days don't come from Mexico.
No, but you understand my point. We're talking about sanctuary cities, and we're talking about chain migration.
It seems to me it's always about Mexico and the southern border.
Well, because he's bringing up a relevant point that's fact-based, talking about
but he's trying to introduce the idea that I'm being racist. That's what he's
saying. No, I just don't like the idea that it's always picking on Mexico.
No, listen, oh my God. We're talking about the wall with Mexico. We're talking about sanctuary cities of people coming in from Mexico.
Lawlessness. What about terrorists coming over the northern border?
I'm against that too, Juan, believe it or not. I'm against that.
I appreciate that. All right. Directly ahead. Is it Vanity Fair or Vanity Fail? The magazine's latest cover causing quite a stir, and we're going to show you why. Next.
All right. Could this be one of the biggest Photoshop fails ever? Oprah and Reese Witherspoon, along with several other A-list celebrities, graced the cover of Vanity Fair's newest Hollywood issue. But the image is sparking confusion. Look closely over the star's extra body parts. When you look very closely at the zoomed-in spot there that we've circled with a red circle, it appears that Witherspoon has 3 legs. And the magazine claims it's simply the lining of her dress. And in another shot, right here, Oprah appears to have 3 hands. So Vanity Fair, and now this happened as a result of a Photoshop because James Franco, who's accused of sexual misconduct, was edited out of it. Now, Greg, you're an editor, magazine editor. If this mistake happens on your biggest issue of the year, arguably, does someone get fired? How does this happen?
Well, ironically, happens to be James Franco's hand.
Oh, gosh.
Sorry, I couldn't resist it. But it is, it is an open secret that some celebrities do have hidden third limbs. And this could be it. They're exposing a secret. You know what this? Okay.
Would you like to list them?
I edited a bunch of magazines in which there was a lot of over tinkering. People, they spend a lot of time erasing blemishes and stretch marks and scars on dudes, and it becomes completely unreal. And they miss the big picture.
They miss the obvious.
They miss the big picture. So, and this has happened with, you'll see misspellings on covers. Really obvious ones, because they're so busy looking at the details that they step back. And, I mean, this has happened a lot more than you think. It happened to me. I won't get into it, but...
Does someone get fired?
No, I don't.
Wait, it happened to you personally?
He's got a big heart. He didn't hire
What time were you did that
I think we have a picture of me, don't we? Have a picture?
Oh, do we have that
something
picture?
did happen to me.
No, wasn't it called
Yes, instead of 6. Well, I got to tell you,
Trying
it's
to make it more
embarrassing.
Wow,
Now,
how-
people
how
expect me to have 8 abs.
They didn't have a picture of a 1K.
Yeah, no, they didn't.
A 1.5.
The
Yeah,
cover.
yeah.
Kimberly, I got to bring
Yeah.
you. You've I don't know. I haven't been on a magazine cover.
Yes.
You have. What if they photoshopped extra hands or legs? How does that make the actress?
It would probably work really well if it was like, look at everything I got. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's bad. It's embarrassing for Vanity Fair to be in this, position. But it just goes to show you. I'm sure Oprah's people was like, we're not going to be on a cover, with him, given the current circumstances. Everyone talking about her running, for president, but she says not in her DNA. But apparently her DNA contains extra arms, legs, hands, which is very interesting. But it's a bad position for them to be in because so many times you have to crash on a magazine cover or do something. You're rushing to get it out. Last-minute objections. Are you going to make publication time? This is what happens.
One, they edited out James Franco because of accusations of sexual misconduct, which he denies. But you've got, pictures of Oprah Winfrey out there with Harvey Weinstein buddying up for the longest time. Is this a lipstick on a pig moment? They're editing out a guy that's currently passé in Hollywood.
It's the strangest metaphor to use.
Meaning they forgave Harvey Weinstein for a decade, but now they edit out James Franco to make themselves feel good on the cover of Vanity Fair. I mean, is this Hollywood hypocrisy?
I don't know about hypocrisy. I think what strikes me is more people are interested in that magazine cover, Pete,
Yes.
and otherwise they would even have any reason to look at it.
You're saying it worked?
Yeah, I'm just going to say a quick comment. I think they did it on purpose, so we would do a segment about it.
Kind of like Rolling Stone. Remember that?
Yeah.